My sister Emma handed me the ultrasound photo at her gender reveal party, beaming with pride. "Isn't she beautiful?" she said, expecting me to coo over the blurry image like everyone else. But I'm a radiologist. I read ultrasounds for a living, and what I saw in that picture made my blood run cold. The image was one I'd seen dozens of times before, not from a patient, but from medical training materials. It was a stock ultrasound photo that shows up on the first page of Google Images when you search 20-week baby girl ultrasound. My sister was showing off a downloaded image as her own at a party with 50 guests, a cake, pink decorations, and a photographer. Her husband Brandon had no idea. And I was the one person at that party who could prove she wasn't actually pregnant. What I did in the next 60 seconds would expose a lie so elaborate that it would destroy my sister's marriage, her reputation, and reveal a desperation I'd never imagined she was capable of. I stared at the ultrasound image in my hands, my mind racing through everything I knew about prenatal imaging. The photo showed a baby in profile, clear enough to see tiny fingers near the face, the curve of the spine, the rounded head. It was a beautiful image, the kind that makes expectant parents cry with joy. It was also a complete fraud. "I'm Dr. Rachel Hartley, 35 years old, and I've been a radiologist for 8 years. I specialize in obstetric imaging, which means I spend 40 hours a week looking at ultrasounds of developing babies. I can tell you gestational age within days, based on femur length. I can identify potential abnormalities from subtle shadows. And I can absolutely recognize the most commonly used stock ultrasound image on the internet when I see it. The image Emma was passing around her gender reveal party was famous in medical circles. It's the first result when you search 20-week ultrasound girl on Google Images. Medical students joke about it because it shows up in so many patient education materials, textbooks, and pregnancy websites. The positioning is perfect, the clarity is exceptional, and real ultrasounds almost never look that good. My sister Emma stood in the center of her living room, surrounded by pink balloons and a 3-tier cake decorated with the words, "It's a girl." Her husband Brandon had his arm around her waist, beaming with pride. 50 guests, mostly Brandon's family and their mutual friends, filled the house. A professional photographer was documenting every moment, and Emma was showing everyone an ultrasound image she'd downloaded from the internet. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was wearing a flowing pink dress that could conceal the absence of a baby bump. She was 20 weeks along, according to the announcement she'd made 2 months ago, but I'd been too busy with work to see her much during that time. When had I last actually seen her in person? Christmas, 3 months ago. Had she been pregnant then? "Rachel, you're the doctor," Emma said, pulling me from my thoughts. "Tell everyone how perfect she looks. You can see all the details, right? Isn't the technology amazing?" Everyone turned to look at me. Brandon, Emma's husband of 4 years, smiled expectantly. His mother, Patricia, who'd been vocal about wanting grandchildren since the wedding, clutched her chest with emotion. Emma's best friend, Sarah, wiped tears from her eyes, and I stood there holding an image from Google, knowing that if I said what I was thinking, I would destroy my sister in front of everyone who mattered to her. What I decided to do in that moment would determine not just how this party ended, but whether I would uncover the truth about why my sister was faking a pregnancy, and the answer to that question would be more devastating than the lie itself. "It's a very clear image," I said carefully, handing the photo back to Emma. "Exceptionally clear, actually." Emma beamed, missing the skepticism in my tone. "I know. Dr. Martinez said I was lucky to get such a good picture. The baby was in the perfect position." Dr. Martinez, Emma's OB-GYN. Either Dr. Martinez had given Emma this stock image for some reason I couldn't fathom, or Emma was lying about where she got it. I needed to find out which. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I asked Emma, keeping my voice light. "Just sister stuff. In the kitchen?" "Of course." Emma followed me through the crowd, still glowing with happiness. In the kitchen, away from the guests, I turned to face her. My sister looked radiant. She'd always wanted children, had talked about being a mother since we were kids ourselves. She and Brandon had been trying for 2 years. I knew that much. But this elaborate party, this fake ultrasound, this was something else entirely. Emma, I said quietly, where did you really get that ultrasound? Her smile faltered. I told you, Dr. Martinez. That's a stock image. I've seen it 100 times. It's all over the internet. You can reverse image search it right now and find thousands of copies. The color drained from Emma's face. For a moment, I thought she might faint. She gripped the kitchen counter, her breathing rapid. Rachel, I can explain. Are you actually pregnant? The question hung in the air between us. Through the doorway, I could hear guests laughing, Brandon's mother talking about setting up a nursery, someone asking about baby shower dates. I was, Emma whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I was pregnant, 10 weeks. We announced it to Brandon's family at Thanksgiving. Everyone was so happy. His mother cried. His father hugged me. They'd been asking for grandchildren for years, and finally I could give them what they wanted. What happened? I miscarried at 12 weeks, the day before we were supposed to have our first ultrasound appointment. She wrapped her arms around herself. I was bleeding, cramping, and I knew it was over, but I couldn't tell them. I couldn't watch Brandon's mother's face fall. I couldn't be the failure again. Emma, miscarriage isn't failure. You don't understand. You have 2 healthy kids. You got pregnant without even trying. You don't know what it's like to want something so badly and have your body refuse to cooperate. I did have 2 children, ages 7 and 4, and she was right that I'd gotten pregnant easily both times, but I'd never thrown it in Emma's face, never made her feel less than. At least, I hoped I hadn't. So you've been pretending? I asked. For 2 months, you've been pretending to still be pregnant? I told myself I'd tell everyone after the 12-week appointment, but then I lost the baby, and I couldn't. So I rescheduled the appointment, said the doctor was running behind, then I rescheduled again, and suddenly it had been weeks, and Brandon's mother was asking about the gender, and I didn't know how to tell the truth anymore. The ultrasound, Emma. You're showing people a fake ultrasound at a gender reveal party, with a photographer, with 50 witnesses. I know. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I know it's insane. I downloaded it last week when Brandon's mother insisted on seeing her granddaughter. I was going to tell the truth. I swear I was. But then Brandon got so excited, and he planned this whole party, and his mother invited everyone she knows, and I couldn't destroy them all. Does Brandon know you miscarried? Emma shook her head. I haven't told anyone. I've been wearing loose clothes, avoiding appointments, making excuses. I told Brandon I wanted to keep the ultrasound appointments private, just the 2 of us, and he respected that. So I've been going to fake appointments, coming home with stories about what the doctor said. Emma, this can't continue. Eventually, people are going to expect to see a baby. What's your plan for 8 months from now when there's no child? She looked at me with eyes full of desperation and something that looked like madness. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. I keep thinking maybe I'll get pregnant again for real, and I can just pretend the dates were off. Or maybe I could adopt and say I delivered early, or I don't know, Rachel. I don't know. What my sister told me next about the lengths she'd gone to maintain this lie would reveal a spiral of deception so elaborate that it involved fake medical bills, staged appointments, and a plan that would have required her to fake a stillbirth in 7 months, and I realized I wasn't just witnessing a lie, I was watching my sister have a breakdown in real time. I have fake hospital bills, Emma said, her voice hollow. I created them on my computer using templates I found online. Brandon saw one on the counter last month, asked what it was for, and I told him it was the ultrasound. He said we should submit it to insurance, and I had to pretend I'd already done that. So now I have to periodically create more fake bills for fake appointments. I felt sick. Emma. I've been researching stillbirth, she continued, and her voice was so flat, so emotionless, that it scared me more than the crying had. The statistics, the procedures, what happens afterward? I figured if I could make it to 35 or 36 weeks, I could say the baby died. People would be sad, but they'd also be supportive. No one questions a mother who's lost a baby. And then Brandon and I could try again, for real this time, and maybe it would work. You were planning to fake a stillbirth. I couldn't keep the horror out of my voice. I didn't know what else to do. Every week that passes makes the lie bigger. Every question about the baby, every piece of clothing Brandon's mother buys, every conversation about names and nursery colors, it just gets worse and worse. And I keep thinking, maybe if I can just hold on a little longer, maybe I'll get pregnant again and none of this will matter. This is a mental health crisis, Emma. You need help, professional help. I need a baby. She was shouting now, though trying to keep her voice down so the guests wouldn't hear. That's what I need. I need to give Brandon the family he wants. I need to make his mother happy. I need to prove that I'm not broken. Through the kitchen doorway, I saw Brandon looking around, probably wondering where Emma had gone. He caught my eye and smiled, completely unaware that his wife was having a breakdown 10 feet away. You have to tell him, I said. Brandon deserves to know the truth. If I tell him, he'll leave me. His mother will hate me. Everyone will know I'm a fraud. If you don't tell him, I will. Emma's eyes went wide with panic. You can't. Rachel, please. You're my sister. You can't do this to me. I'm your sister, which is why I'm not going to let you continue this. You're planning to fake a stillbirth, Emma. Do you understand how insane that is? You need psychiatric help, and Brandon needs to know what's happening so he can support you through getting that help. He won't support me. He'll leave me. If he loves you, he'll stay. And if he doesn't stay, then he's not worth keeping. But you cannot continue this lie. It's destroying you. Emma grabbed my arm, her grip painful. Please, please, Rachel, give me 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks to figure out how to tell him myself. Don't destroy my marriage in front of 50 people at a party he planned because he loves me and wants to celebrate our baby. Please. I looked at her, this woman who used to be my confident, funny, capable sister, now reduced to begging me not to expose a lie that had consumed her entire life. I thought about what our mother would want me to do. Mom had died 3 years ago from cancer, and one of her last wishes had been that Emma and I take care of each other. But taking care of someone doesn't mean enabling their self-destruction. 1 week, I said. You have 1 week to tell Brandon the truth yourself. If you don't, I will. And Emma, you need to see a therapist. This isn't just about the lie anymore. This is about whatever is driving you to these extremes. She nodded, wiping her tears. 1 week, I promise. I'll tell him. And this party ends now. You're going to go out there and tell everyone you're feeling sick, that you need to lie down. We're going to end this before it gets any worse. Emma took a shaky breath, fixed her makeup as best she could, and we walked back into the living room. She put on a brave smile, apologized for not feeling well, and asked Brandon if they could wrap up the party early. He was immediately concerned, helping her to the couch, asking what she needed. The guests filed out, offering congratulations and well wishes, completely unaware of the truth. The photographer packed up her equipment. Brandon's mother hugged Emma and promised to call tomorrow to check on her. And I drove home to my husband and children, carrying the weight of my sister's secret and the knowledge that in 1 week, everything in Emma's life might fall apart. But what I didn't know as I left that party was that Emma had no intention of telling Brandon the truth, and what she would do over the next 7 days to avoid that conversation would force me into a confrontation that would shatter our entire family. The next day, Emma texted me, Thank you for giving me time. I'm going to tell him this weekend. I promise. Day 2. I made an appointment with a therapist for next week. You were right. I need help. Day 3. Brandon and I are going away this weekend to the cabin. I'm going to tell him there privately where we can really talk. Day 4. I'm so scared, Rachel. What if he leaves me? Day 5. Silence. Day 6. I called her. No answer. I texted. No response. I called Brandon's cell. Straight to voicemail. Day 7. I drove to their house. Emma's car was in the driveway. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I used the spare key they'd given me for emergencies. The house was empty. Completely, utterly empty. Not just of people, but of furniture, belongings, everything. Where Emma and Brandon's couch had been, there was nothing but carpet indentations. The kitchen had no dishes, no appliances, nothing on the counters. I walked through every room, increasingly panicked. In the master bedroom, I found a note on the floor, written in Emma's handwriting. Rachel, I'm sorry. I couldn't tell him. I couldn't destroy everything. Brandon got a job offer in Seattle. We're moving. Fresh start, new city, new life. By the time we get there, I'll be showing enough that people won't question it. I'll figure out the rest when I get there. Please don't try to find me. Please don't tell Brandon. Let me handle this my way. I love you. Emma. I stood in that empty bedroom, holding a note from my sister who was running away from her lies instead of facing them, and I realized I had a choice to make. I could respect her wishes, let her move across the country and continue this catastrophic deception, or I could do what I should have done at the party. Tell Brandon the truth, even if it meant destroying my sister's marriage and possibly our relationship forever. I pulled out my phone and called Brandon. This time, he answered. Rachel, hey, sorry we've been hard to reach. We've been packing like crazy for the move. Brandon, where are you right now? We're at a hotel near the airport. Our flight to Seattle is in 3 hours. Why? Is everything okay? I need to talk to you, in person, before you get on that plane. Rachel, we don't have time. The movers already took everything. We have to return the rental car. We're cutting it close as it is. Brandon, Emma isn't pregnant. Silence on the other end of the line. What did you say? Emma isn't pregnant. She miscarried at 12 weeks and has been lying about it ever since. The ultrasound from the party was a stock image from Google. She's been faking appointments, creating fake medical bills, and she was planning to fake a stillbirth in 7 months. I'm sorry to tell you this way, but you're about to move across the country based on a lie, and I can't let that happen. The silence stretched on so long I thought he'd hung up. Then I heard his voice, cold and flat, in a way I'd never heard before. What hotel are you at? I asked. He told me. I told him I was coming, and I drove to that hotel, knowing that what happened in the next hour would determine whether my sister would ever forgive me, but also knowing that if I didn't do this, I'd be enabling a deception that could only end in disaster. What Brandon said when I showed him the proof of Emma's lies would force me to choose between my sister and the truth, and what Emma did when she realized I'd told him would reveal just how far she'd fallen into a delusion that was no longer just about pregnancy, but about her entire identity and worth as a person. I found Brandon in the hotel lobby, sitting in a chair, staring at nothing. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. Emma was nowhere to be seen. She's in the room, he said before I could ask. She won't come out. She knows I know. I sat down next to him. I'm sorry. I know this is... Why didn't she tell me? His voice cracked. When she lost the baby, why didn't she tell me? I would have been there for her. I would have held her, cried with her, whatever she needed. Why did she think she had to lie? I think she thought you'd leave her, or that she disappointed you, or your family. She was carrying this idea that her worth was tied to giving you a child. That's insane. I married her because I love her, not because of her reproductive capabilities. My mother can be pushy about grandchildren, but Emma knows I'd choose her over my mother's expectations every time." He ran his hands through his hair. "At least, I thought she knew that." "Did you know she was struggling this much? With fertility? With the pressure?" "I knew she was stressed about getting pregnant. We'd been trying for 2 years, but I told her we could look into fertility treatments or adoption or just be happy together without kids, if that's how it worked out. I thought we were on the same page." Clearly, she didn't feel that way. Brandon pulled out his phone and showed me something. It was a text chain between him and Emma from 3 months ago, right after the miscarriage would have happened based on her timeline. Emma: "Had some spotting today. Called the doctor, they said it's normal. Baby is fine." Brandon: "Are you sure? Do you want me to come home from work?" Emma: "No, I'm fine. Just resting. Doctor said as long as it's not heavy bleeding, it's nothing to worry about." Brandon: "Okay, but call me if anything changes. I love you both." Emma: "Love you too?" "She lied to me that day," Brandon said. "She was probably sitting at home, having a miscarriage, and she texted me that everything was fine. Why? Why would she go through that alone?" I had no answer. Emma's psychology had clearly spiraled into something I didn't understand, a mix of shame, desperation, and magical thinking that made her believe if she just pretended hard enough, reality would bend to match her lies. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to get on that plane, go to Seattle, start fresh like we planned. Pretend this conversation never happened. But I can't. I can't build a life with someone who had lied to me for months about something this fundamental." "Are you going to leave her?" "I don't know," he said again. "I love her, but I don't know if I can trust her. And without trust, what do we have?" A door opened down the hallway. Emma appeared, her face swollen from crying. She saw me sitting with Brandon, and her expression hardened. "You told him. You actually told him." "I had to. You were moving across the country based on a lie. You promised me a week. It's only been 7 days. And you promised you'd tell him yourself. You lied to me, Emma, just like you've been lying to everyone." She walked toward us, and I saw Brandon tense. "Emma," he started. "Don't," she cut him off. "Don't say whatever you're about to say. I know I messed up. I know I should have told you. But I was scared, and I made bad decisions, and it spiraled out of control. But we can fix this. We can go to Seattle, start over, and this time I'll be honest. I'll get help. We can try again, the right way." "There is no Seattle job," Brandon said quietly. Emma froze. "What?" "There is no job offer in Seattle. I made that up. 2 weeks ago, you started talking about moving, about getting away from family pressure, starting fresh somewhere new. You brought it up every day, getting more and more insistent. So I told you I'd gotten a job offer in Seattle to make you happy, to give you the fresh start you seemed so desperate for. I was going to tell you the truth when we got to the airport, suggest we use the trip as a vacation to figure things out. But it was all a lie, Emma, just like your pregnancy." The color drained from Emma's face. "You lied to me?" "I lied to make you happy. You lied to, what? Avoid facing reality? It's not the same thing, Emma." "You're right," she said, her voice breaking. "It's not the same. What I did was worse. So much worse." She sank into a chair, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw her truly face what she'd done. Not just the lie about the pregnancy, but the elaborate deception that had consumed months of her life, the fake medical bills, the downloaded ultrasound, the plan to fake a stillbirth. All of it, laid out in the harsh light of truth. "I need help," Emma whispered. "Real help. Professional help. I don't know when I stopped being myself and became this person who lies about everything." Brandon looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "I'll help you get that help. But I can't live with you right now. I need time to process this, to figure out if I can trust you again. My mother has a condo she's not using. You can stay there while you work with a therapist. And then maybe we can talk about whether there's a future for us. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't abandonment either. It was something in between, a tentative offer of support with clear boundaries. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to both of you. I wanted to hug her, to tell her it would be okay, but I wasn't sure it would be. I wasn't sure anything would ever be okay again. My sister had broken something fundamental, not just in her marriage, but in how I saw her. The Emma I thought I knew would never have done this, which meant either I'd never really known her, or she'd changed into someone I didn't recognize. What happened over the next 6 months would determine whether Emma could rebuild her life and her marriage, and whether I could forgive myself for being the one who brought everything crashing down, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. The first month after the hotel confrontation, I didn't hear from Emma at all. Brandon sent occasional updates. She'd moved into his mother's condo. She'd started seeing a therapist 3 times a week. She'd asked him not to contact her while she worked through things. He was staying with a friend, giving them both space to process what had happened. Patricia, Brandon's mother, called me 2 weeks after the party. She'd been told that Emma had a miscarriage and needed time to recover, but nothing about the months of deception that followed. Brandon had asked me not to share the full truth with his family yet, wanting to protect Emma's privacy while she got treatment. Rachel, dear, I'm worried about Emma, Patricia said. She won't return my calls. Brandon says she needs space, but I want to be there for her. A miscarriage is devastating, but she doesn't have to go through it alone. The irony of that statement was almost too much. Emma had gone through the actual miscarriage completely alone, too ashamed to tell anyone. Then she'd spent months going through an elaborate deception alone, trapped in a lie that grew bigger every day. She's getting professional help, I told Patricia. Give her time. She'll reach out when she's ready. Professional help? You mean therapy? Is it that serious? Yes, I said simply, because what else could I say? Yes, it's that serious. Your daughter-in-law was planning to fake a stillbirth. Your son's wife has been creating fake medical bills and showing strangers ultrasound images at parties. Your future grandchild never existed. 6 weeks after the confrontation, Emma finally called me. Her voice sounded different, quieter, more thoughtful. I'm not calling to yell at you for telling Brandon, if that's what you're worried about, she said. My therapist helped me understand that you did the right thing. I was in crisis, and you intervened. It probably saved my life, or at least my sanity. How are you doing? I asked carefully. Better, worse, different. My therapist says I was experiencing something called pseudocyesis symptoms combined with complicated grief and severe anxiety. Apparently, losing the baby triggered a kind of break from reality where I genuinely started to believe that if I just acted pregnant enough, believed hard enough, I could make it true. Emma, I had no idea you were struggling that much. Neither did I. Looking back now, I can see how detached from reality I became. But in the moment, it all made perfect sense. Of course I needed to download an ultrasound image. Of course I needed to plan for 7 months ahead. Of course I needed to move across the country to maintain the lie. It all felt completely rational. Have you talked to Brandon? Once a week, in therapy. We're doing couples counseling with my individual therapist present. It's hard, Rachel. He's trying to understand, but there's this look in his eyes sometimes, like he doesn't know who I am anymore. And honestly, I don't know who I am anymore, either. I heard the pain in her voice, the genuine confusion of someone who'd lost themselves so completely that they couldn't find their way back to who they used to be. The therapist says I built my entire identity around becoming a mother, Emma continued. When I couldn't get pregnant easily like you did, I started to feel like a failure. When I finally did get pregnant and then lost it, that failure became unbearable. So I created a fantasy where I wasn't a failure, where I was giving Brandon and his family exactly what they wanted, and I got so lost in that fantasy that I couldn't see reality anymore. What happens now? Now I do the work, real work, figuring out who I am beyond the role of potential mother, learning to communicate instead of lying, rebuilding trust with Brandon if he'll let me, and living with the fact that 50 people came to a gender reveal, party for a baby that didn't exist, and eventually they're all going to find out the truth. What Emma told me about her therapy sessions would reveal the depth of her delusion had gone far beyond what I'd seen at the party, and the treatment plan her therapist recommended would require her to face consequences she'd never imagined. "My therapist wants me to tell people the truth," Emma said during our next phone call 3 weeks later. "Not just Brandon and you, everyone. Brandon's family, our friends, everyone who came to that party. She says I can't heal while I'm still hiding the full truth from people. Emma, that's going to be incredibly difficult." "I know. I've already started. I told Brandon's mother yesterday the whole thing, the miscarriage, the downloaded ultrasound, the fake medical bills, the plan to fake a stillbirth, everything." "How did she react?" Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. "About how you'd expect. Shock, horror, anger that I'd deceived her son. But then something surprising happened. She told me about her own struggles with infertility before she had Brandon. 3 miscarriages, years of treatments, the social pressure of being a young wife in the 1980s who couldn't give her husband children. She said she understood the desperation, even if she didn't understand the lies. That's actually really compassionate of her. She also said she's partially responsible for the pressure I felt, that she'd been so vocal about wanting grandchildren that she'd made me feel like my worth to the family depended on producing a baby. She apologized, Rachel. Brandon's mother, who I was convinced would hate me forever, apologized to me." Over the next month, Emma systematically told everyone the truth. Her best friend Sarah, who cried and then hugged her and said she wished Emma had felt safe enough to tell her about the miscarriage when it happened. Brandon's father, who was hurt by the deception, but grateful Emma was getting help. The photographer from the party, who deleted all the photos and refused to charge for her services. Each conversation was excruciating, Emma told me. Each person's reaction was different. Some were understanding, some were angry, some were confused. But Emma faced all of it, accepting the consequences of her actions without making excuses. "My therapist says this is called accountability," Emma explained. "I can't control how people react to the truth, but I can control whether I own what I did, and I'm done hiding." 4 months after the hotel confrontation, Brandon moved back home. Not because everything was fixed, he made clear to Emma, but because he wanted to actively work on their marriage instead of avoiding it. They established rules, complete honesty about everything, even uncomfortable truths. Continued couples therapy twice a week. No talk of trying for a baby until both of their therapists agreed they were ready. "I don't know if we'll make it," Emma admitted to me over coffee one afternoon. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since the party. She looked different, older somehow, but also more grounded. "Some days I see him look at me, and I know he's thinking about the lies. Some days I look at myself in the mirror and can't believe what I did. But we're trying. That's all we can do." "Do you still want children?" I asked carefully. "Yes, but not desperately. Not in that panicked, my worth depends on it way. My therapist is helping me separate my desire to be a mother from my need to prove something to myself or others. If Brandon and I have children someday, it'll be because we want to raise them together, not because I need to fill some hole in my identity." "What about the people who still don't know? There were 50 people at that party. You can't have told all of them." Emma took a deep breath. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I'm writing a letter, a public letter that I'm going to post on social media, explaining everything. My therapist thinks it's a good idea, that it'll be easier than 50 individual conversations, and it'll prevent rumors from spreading if people find out through gossip." "Emma, are you sure? That's very public, very permanent." "I'm sure. I spent months hiding the truth. It's time to stop hiding. What Emma's public letter contained would shock everyone who knew her, but the responses she received would prove that vulnerability and honesty could create connections deeper than the perfect facade she'd been trying to maintain. Emma showed me the letter before she posted it. It was raw, honest, and heartbreaking. 4 months ago, I hosted a gender reveal party for a pregnancy that didn't exist. I showed friends and family an ultrasound image I downloaded from the internet. I'd been lying about being pregnant for 2 months after suffering a miscarriage at 12 weeks. This isn't a confession I'm making lightly, but I owe everyone the truth. I struggled with infertility for 2 years. When I finally got pregnant, I felt like I'd won a prize I'd been desperately competing for. When I lost that pregnancy, I felt like a failure. Rather than grieve honestly and ask for support, I created an elaborate lie. I faked appointments, created false medical bills, and planned increasingly desperate deceptions to maintain the illusion of pregnancy. I'm sharing this because I'm done hiding. I'm in intensive therapy, working to understand why I made these choices and how to be a person who faces reality instead of constructing fantasies. My husband Brandon has shown me more grace than I deserve, and we're working to rebuild trust in our marriage. If you came to my gender reveal party, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for lying to you, for using your love and excitement to feed a delusion, and for putting you in an awkward position now that you know the truth. If you've ever struggled with infertility, miscarriage, or the pressure to perform milestones on society's timeline, I see you. If you've ever felt like your worth depended on your ability to meet others' expectations, I understand. And if you've ever made choices you're ashamed of because you couldn't face your pain, you're not alone. This is my accountability. This is my truth. This is me choosing honesty over comfort, even when it's terrifying. She posted it on a Friday evening. By Saturday morning, it had been shared hundreds of times. The comments were mixed. Some people were harsh, calling her manipulative and disturbed. But most were surprisingly supportive. A college friend. I had 3 miscarriages before my daughter was born. The pressure to smile and act like I was fine was overwhelming. Thank you for being honest about how dark that pressure can make things. A former coworker. I faked a pregnancy once in my 20s because I was afraid my boyfriend would leave me. I lost it at 10 weeks, and he never knew. I've carried that shame for 15 years. Thank you for being brave enough to share. Brandon's cousin. I was at your party, and I'm not going to lie. Finding out the truth was jarring. But reading this, understanding the pain you were in, I get it. I hope you're healing. The letter went viral in parenting and mental health circles. A podcast about infertility asked Emma to be a guest. A therapist who specialized in pregnancy loss and perinatal mental health wrote an article analyzing Emma's case as an example of how societal pressure around motherhood can trigger psychological crises. Emma declined the podcast interview, but agreed to let the therapist publish her article, hoping it might help other women recognize the warning signs of similar spirals. I don't want to become the face of woman who faked pregnancy, Emma told me. But if my story helps even one person ask for help before they get as lost as I did, then maybe something good can come from this nightmare. 6 months after the hotel confrontation, Emma and Brandon hosted a small dinner party. Just immediate family, me and my husband, Brandon's parents, Emma's dad, and stepmother. No pink decorations, no photographers, no announcements. Just a meal and honest conversation. Patricia raised her glass for a toast. To Emma and Brandon, to honesty, to healing, and to whatever the future holds. We all drank. The evening was slightly awkward, as family gatherings tend to be when everyone is carefully avoiding sensitive topics. But it was also real in a way Emma's gender reveal party had never been. Later, as I helped Emma clear dishes, she said, "I'm not pregnant. In case you were wondering if I was about to make another announcement." I laughed despite myself. I wasn't wondering, but thank you for clarifying. Brandon and I decided to take a year off from trying. Just focus on our marriage, on my mental health, on building a foundation that can handle whatever comes next. If we have kids eventually, great. If we don't, we'll figure out how to be happy anyway. That sounds really healthy. It feels terrifying, honestly. Letting go of the timeline, the pressure, the idea that I have to be a mother to be complete. But my therapist says that terror means I'm growing, so I'm trying to sit with it instead of running from it. A year after the gender reveal party, Emma sent me a text. 1 year sober from lying. Celebrated with my therapist today. Thank you for saving me when I couldn't save myself. I called her immediately. A year? You're counting it like sobriety? My therapist suggested it. The lying was an addiction of sorts, a way to avoid painful reality. So we treat it like addiction recovery, one day at a time, choosing honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me, too. And Rachel, I'm sorry for what I put you through, for putting you in a position where you had to choose between protecting me and telling the truth. That wasn't fair to you. You were in crisis. You didn't know what you were doing. I didn't, but that doesn't make it okay. So I'm sorry, genuinely sorry. 18 months after the party, Emma called with news. She was pregnant, for real this time, 8 weeks along, confirmed by actual medical appointments with actual doctors. I'm terrified, she admitted. Terrified I'll lose it again. Terrified people won't believe me. Terrified I'll spiral if something goes wrong. But I'm also handling it differently this time. I told Brandon the day I got a positive test. I told my therapist. I told Patricia. And I'm telling you, I'm not hiding. I'm not pretending. I'm just being honest about being pregnant and scared. How's Brandon? Cautiously excited. We agreed that if I start showing signs of the kind of thinking that led to the lies, he'll intervene immediately. We have a plan. We're not doing a gender reveal party. We're not making big announcements. We're just taking it one appointment at a time. I'm happy for you, Emma. Genuinely happy. I know. And if something goes wrong, if I lose this baby too, I'm going to grieve honestly this time. I'm going to let people support me. I'm going to face reality instead of constructing elaborate deceptions to avoid it. That's growth, right? That's huge growth. Emma gave birth to a healthy baby girl 7 months later. She posted a simple announcement, a photo of the baby's hand holding her finger, with the caption, "She's here, she's healthy, she's real. We're grateful and overwhelmed and honest about both." I visited them in the hospital. Brandon looked exhausted but genuinely happy. Emma looked like herself again, or maybe like a new version of herself, one who'd been broken and rebuilt stronger. "Want to hold her?" Emma asked, offering me her daughter. I took the tiny baby, this real, actual human who existed, and felt overwhelmed by how different this was from that gender reveal party 18 months ago. What's her name? Grace. Because that's what we needed to get through this. Grace for each other, grace for ourselves, and grace to start over. It was a perfect name. But what would test Emma's recovery most wasn't the pregnancy or the birth, but what happened 3 months later when a friend invited her to a baby shower, and Emma had to decide whether she could attend celebrations for other people's pregnancies without spiraling back into comparison and desperation. The invitation came from Sarah, Emma's best friend, who was pregnant with her second child. Emma stared at it for days before showing it to me. "I don't know if I can go," she admitted. "Part of me wants to be there for Sarah, but part of me is terrified. What if seeing her pregnant triggers something? What if I start comparing our experiences? What if I fall back into that dark place where other people's happiness makes me feel inadequate?" "Have you talked to your therapist about it?" "Yes. She says it's up to me, but that avoiding triggers forever isn't healthy either. At some point, I need to face situations that might be uncomfortable and trust that I have the tools to handle them without self-destructing." "What does Brandon think?" "He says he'll support whatever I decide. If I want to go, he'll watch Grace. If I don't want to go, he'll help me write a kind note to Sarah explaining why." Emma ended up going to the shower. She called me afterwards, and I could hear both exhaustion and pride in her voice. I did it. I went. I celebrated Sarah. I didn't spiral. There was a moment when someone asked if I wanted more children, and I felt that old panic rising, that need to prove I was succeeding at motherhood. But I just said, "We're happy with Grace for now," and changed the subject. No elaborate lies, no defensive justifications, just a simple, honest answer. "That's amazing, Emma." It felt amazing, like I'm actually healing, not just hiding my damage better. There's a difference, you know? Over the next year, Emma continued to navigate her recovery. She joined a support group for women with pregnancy loss and perinatal mental health issues. She became an advocate for better mental health screening during pregnancy and postpartum. She shared her story, carefully and with boundaries, when it might help others. Brandon's mother, Patricia, asked Emma to speak at a church women's group about infertility and mental health. Emma agreed, bringing Brandon for moral support. "I talked about the miscarriage, the lies, the recovery," Emma told me afterwards. And at the end, 3 different women came up to me privately. One had faked a pregnancy in college. One was currently lying to her husband about fertility treatments she wasn't actually getting. One was planning to adopt her sister's baby and pretend she'd given birth herself. These women were living in the same hell I lived in, and they had no idea how to get out. What did you tell them? The truth, that it gets worse before it gets better, that coming clean feels like dying, but that living in the lie is actually dying, just slower. I gave them my therapist's contact information. I don't know if they'll reach out, but at least they know there's a way forward. 2 years after the gender reveal party, Emma and Brandon renewed their wedding vows. It was small, just family, in their backyard. No elaborate ceremony, no big speeches, just a recommitment to the promises they'd made the first time, now understood more deeply.